Welcome everyone, my name is Rigel and welcome to what is probably the last episode of Rigel's Random Reports ahead of Eurovision 2025. Now, no promises as to whether this series is going to continue into Junior Eurovision or even Eurovision 2026, but remember this series is primarily about Eurovision news, and in the off season there's just not going to be that much Eurovision news, so this will probably be the last episode for a while at least. But fear not, because this episode is going to be packed full of content. I'm going to talk about everything you need to know ahead of going in to watch the show. I'm going to start by talking about the basic information surrounding the contest, such as who's going to be presenting the show and how the interval acts are going to look like, as well as some of the spokespersons that we have for the national juries in the grand final. Then I'm going to talk about what happened since the last time I made an episode of Rigel's Random Reports, and I'm also going to review some of the odds that we have for Eurovision 2025, how those have changed since the last episode, as well as some of the new betting brackets that we have. Afterwards, I'm going to talk about the different fan polls and fan juries that we have gotten in the last couple of weeks and see how fans think of the current songs in the running. And finally, to end off the video, I'm going to take a look at what the next couple of weeks are going to look like in terms of actual Eurovision content, for example, rehearsals, as well as the actual contest days themselves. So with that in mind, no time to waste, let's get right into the video. For one last time this season, here is all the basic information you need to know about Eurovision 2025. The contest is taking place on the 13th, 15th, and 17th this month. The host country is Switzerland, because Switzerland won the contest last year. The host city is Basel, the host arena is St. Jakobshalle, and the presenters are Hazel Brugger, Sandra Studer, and Michelle Hunziker, although Michelle Hunziker will only host for the grand final. Now, officially the slogan is actually United by Music, as designated by the EBU as the permanent slogan, but the Swiss broadcaster have actually come up with their own unofficial slogan, which they have featured a lot more prominently in their artwork, which is Welcome Home, obviously alluding to the fact that Switzerland was the first country to host Eurovision, and the EBU actually has its headquarters in Switzerland as well, so this is basically coming back to where it all started. We have 37 countries participating in the contest this year, which is the exact same as last year, although we could have had 38 because Montenegro came back to the contest, but Moldova then withdrew, saying that they didn't have enough funding to stay in Switzerland for the contest, and the quality of the national final was low. However, shortly after this, the big favorite in the national final actually said that they found a sponsor who were willing to cover their costs for staying in Switzerland for Eurovision, but the broadcaster had already announced withdrawal, so the big favorite didn't really get to do anything, and I still feel like Semaphore would have qualified in the semifinals, but we'll never know whether that would be the case. Although it should be noted that even though they withdrew from the contest, Moldova will still be broadcasting the contest, as will North Macedonia. So with that said, let's move on to the postcards, which are the little clips that play before all of the performances at Eurovision. They are usually filmed in the country where the contest is hosted, and this year we had postcards from all over Switzerland, like in Basel, of course, Bern, Zurich, Fribourg, Ticino, St. Gallen, Lucerne, and Valais, and so many more that I just didn't recognize. But yeah, there are postcards this year from all over Switzerland, and it's going to be very interesting. And we also have a mascot. The mascot is called Lumo, and you might have seen a few photos of them going around. I prefer not to include a photo here because it might be traumatic. So yeah, that is the mascot, but of course there are still additional details to follow. Starting with Arena Plus, which is an officially hosted Eurovision 2025 watch party taking place at a stadium called the St. Jakob Park, which is literally across the road from the St. Jakobshalle where Eurovision itself is being hosted. This event is going to be hosted by Sven Epinay, who is the main German commentator for Switzerland in Eurovision, and also Melanie Fremont. There's also going to be some guest performers ahead of the show, such as Baby Lasagna, Luca Hani, and Kate Ryan. In terms of interval acts, what we know so far is that for the first semifinal, we have a theme called Where It All Began, again alluding to the fact that Eurovision was first hosted in Switzerland, with some entries from Switzerland being performed by Paula, John's Tears, Peter from Peter, Sue and Mark, and also Luca Hani again. For the second semifinal, we're going to have a theme called Eurovision Fans, where they say they're going to focus on the fans of the show. Now, we don't know exactly what this means, however, it has been announced that Baby Lasagna and Karia, the respective televote winners of their Eurovision years, are going to be performing in the semifinals, so maybe they'll have a little medley of their own, but some people are also speculating that there might be a 2020 medley because some of the names from 2020 were also announced, namely Effendi from Azerbaijan, Destiny from Malta, and also the Root from Lithuania. So those might be things happening in the second semifinal. And for the grand final, we don't know exactly what will happen. But one thing that we do know will happen is Nemo, the current reigning winner, returning to perform their new song called Casanova. This song just released on YouTube and streaming platforms a couple of days ago, and you should probably go listen to it, even though I haven't. But yeah, that is really all we know so far about the interval acts. They haven't really talked about it too much in detail, and we'll just have to see what happens as we get closer to the rehearsals of those interval acts. Now, moving on to more organizational stuff, I'm going to start by talking about the flag policy that the EBU has instated for this year's contest. Now, in the last few years, the audience were not allowed to bring any flags into the arena at all. Trust me, I'm talking from experience. But this year, they have said that they are allowing any flags to be brought into the arena by the audience, any flags that comply with Swiss law. So basically, not just the flags from the participating countries, but also flags like pride flags or even the Palestinian flag. They can be brought into the arena as well, as long as, again, it complies with Swiss law. However, this is not the case for participants in the contest who are allowed only to bring the flag of the country that they are representing. This poses a problem for some of the participants who do not come from the country which they are representing in Eurovision, such as Kai, who come from Finland but are representing Sweden, and Emmy, who comes from Norway but is representing Ireland, as well as Sisal, who is Danish by citizenship. However, she is also very proudly Faroese, and she has been told that she will not be allowed to bring the Faroese flag on stage, which is a shame. There's also an issue that some groups have brought up, that the participants are not allowed to bring pride flags. This has been appealed by some Dutch groups, and actually this has been brought to the Dutch broadcaster, who said they will appeal the decision that has been made by the EBU to ban the participants from bringing their own pride flags. And even last year, Nemo said that they had to smuggle their own flag into the arena and into the green room, and they've just banned it this year, so that's unfortunate, and hopefully we'll see something improve in that aspect. In the meantime, let's move on to some new posts that were made in the organization of the EBU regarding Eurovision. First, we start with the ESC director. That is not an abbreviation, that's actually what the post is called, and this will be fulfilled by Martin Green. His job is to oversee the two directors below him, which are Martin Osterdahl, the supervisor, and the other director, which is the commercial director, which is currently a post filled by Jurien van der Meer. Now, we don't really know what this commercial director does, or at least has not been given a lot of publicity, but yeah, we now have a post above the supervisor of the contest, which is the ESC director, that is being fulfilled by Martin Green from the BBC. And finally, there will also be a new code of conduct coming into effect, the effects of which will include a no filming area policy, following what happened last year with Joost from the Netherlands and certain delegations filming him when they were not supposed to do so. However, it was also announced that we will no longer get semi-final qualifier press conferences, which, if you ask me, is a real shame. To quote a certain someone, why not? And here are just some of the spokespersons who will be presenting the points from their national juries on the night of the Eurovision Grand Final. And immediately there are some names which are already very familiar to some, if not all of you. Starting with Cyprus, we have Lucas Hamatos, who, if you don't recognize the name, you must surely recognize the man at this point. He has presented the points for Cyprus at Eurovision for pretty much the last decade. For Georgia, the points will be given out by Nutsa, who represented Georgia last year. For Italy, we have Topo Gigio, which is actually a kind of mouse character that actually accompanied Lucio Corsi during the Sanremo performance, and he will return to give the points for Italy at Eurovision. For the Netherlands, we have Chantal Jansen, and if you recognize that name, that's because she actually was one of the hosts for Eurovision 2021. Now, this was originally offered actually to Nikki from Nikki Tutorials because she was actually supposed to give the points out last year before the Netherlands were basically disqualified, but she refused, and this post was instead given to Chantal, who was one of the other hosts of Eurovision 2021. Then we have San Marino, who are having their points given out by Senhit, who of course represented San Marino in Eurovision 2020 and 2021. For Slovenia, we have Lorela Flego, who, again, like Cyprus, she's given out the points at Eurovision multiple times from the Slovene jury. For Spain, we have none other than Chanel, who, of course, brought a fantastic result for Spain at Eurovision 2022. For Switzerland, we have none other than the hosts of Arena Plus themselves. Sven Epinay and Melly Fremont from Arena Plus will be giving out the points from the Swiss jury. For Ukraine, we will have Jerry Hale from last year, of course, and Jerry Hale is also just a very big fan of Eurovision in general. She was actually at several of the pre-parties performing and or interacting with this year's artists. In fact, there is one clip that I distinctly remember of Jerry Hale telling Alessandro from Norway, "Come on, Twink," and then carrying Alessandro on her back, which is just hilarious. And finally, the points from the UK will be given out by none other than Nchuti Gatwa. Now, you might not recognize that name, but if you watch Doctor Who, you will know precisely that this is the actor who is the current Doctor in Doctor Who. In fact, on the same day as the grand final of Eurovision, there will be a new episode of Doctor Who where they go into some sort of, I think it was called an intergalactic song contest or something like that. And that episode will actually also features some names of British Eurovision fame, like Scott Mills and Rylan, for example, and of course Nchuti Gatwa because he's a doctor. But yeah, as a kind of tie-in to Doctor Who, they will be having Nchuti Gatwa himself present the points from the UK jury during the grand final, which I think is really, really interesting. Again, for the final time this season, what happened since the last time I made an episode of Rigel's Random Reports? Well, we had pre-parties. We had Eurovision in concert, which had ironically already happened by the time I uploaded my March recap. We had the London Eurovision party, we had Manchagan or Mankagan, and we also had the pre-party ES in Madrid. However, in normal years, we would have also had the Barcelona pre-party, but this year they said they couldn't find a venue in time, so it was just cancelled. But we still had these other pre-parties and content from there to sink our teeth into, I suppose. And there's a lot of interesting content that came out of that, a lot of TikToks and such, like the one I talked about earlier where Jerry Hale told Alessandro he was a twink and told him to get on her back, and many such cases. And Zoe May was also at one of the pre-parties, and she actually hosted a little thing. I can't remember the name of the series now, but she had a whole like fondue pot and told people to take questions out of that and try to answer them, and it was just really interesting to see these artists interact, which they will no doubt continue to do in the next couple of weeks. We also had a few Instagram live streams. There were a lot of people who have at one point or another been on these live streams, but I think the most frequent occurrences were Vibe from Iceland, JJ from Austria, Alessandro from Norway, Seasol from Denmark slash Faroes, and also I think Gojo as well was also pretty frequently on those Instagram live streams. There was one that was kind of wild where like they being Gojo and Vibe, they were in a hotel and they were actually told by hotel security to be quiet. And in another one, I think Gojo was almost getting arrested in Latvia or something like that. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. So yeah, there were quite a few of these Instagram live streams. JJ was on them a lot, as was Alessandro, etc. I think I think Zoe was on a few of them as well, and also Luan from France was also on one as well. So yeah, a lot of fun times all around. There were also staging hints, not that many, I'll be honest, because a lot of the performances were at national finals, so we kind of knew what to expect, and B, a lot of the internal selections were just pretty quiet about their staging preparations. Although we did get some hints from Cyprus, is that they're going to be not having Theo Evan dance, which is quite interesting because he's a professional dancer, but instead he's going to be doing some sort of weird thing in a kind of monkey bar scenario or some sort of cage thing. I'm not really sure, but we'll just have to see how that plays out on camera and on stage. In fact, as of recording this, Cyprus are having their first rehearsal today, so I'm kind of scared. But yeah, there's been a few staging hints, but not that many. And of course, we had various live performances as well from the different artists. You know, sometimes they couldn't make it to pre-parties, but they could make it to like radio shows or shows from different places. So yeah, those are some of the things that happened in April, and I'm not going to recap the pre-parties too much, but I will say that I think people were positively surprised by Czechia and by Adonis, and they said that the dance break actually worked really well live, which I love to see it because, you know, my winner is actually Czechia. But yeah, there are a few that have kind of improved in the estimations. Online and in the betting odds. And speaking of the betting odds, let's go and check out how they are doing right now. And here are the winning odds of Eurovision 2025, courtesy of EurovisionWorld.com. Now, I'm not going to go through most of these at the bottom. Again, honestly, I'm looking at this in my previous video, and not much has changed, if I'm being honest. Except Serbia has actually gone up 5 places, but otherwise it seems pretty similar here at the bottom. I would say I'm just gonna keep going up top, and honestly, it's pretty static if I'm being honest. Although one big change I have observed from the previous video is that Cyprus has gone from 19th place all the way up to 11th. Now, this might be due to the hints of the staging that I talked about earlier, and of course, their staging is being done by none other than Sergio Hayen, who did the fantastic performance of Doomsday Blue last year for Ireland. That might be why Cyprus has gone up so much, but I'm personally not super convinced that it will end up that high, if even qualify. But yeah, remember these are winning odds, so you know countries might qualify from this bottom pile and not win, so they won't be betted on as much. I would say personally, I'm looking mostly at Latvia. Actually, I think Latvia is a pretty solid qualifier even, but they obviously won't be winning the contest because there's just not enough momentum behind it. And so yeah, I think that's kind of one of the reasons people aren't betting on it as much. Although I must say I think Georgia has actually gone down a few places. Georgia has gone from 30th in the last video I made to 35th. So yeah, not a great look and not great for their qualification chances. So it's not a lot has actually changed from the previous episode, at least in the bottom area. I would say one big change is again because of the betting odds viewing the performances of Adonis positively from the pre-parties, Czechia was previously in 14th in the odds, but they have now gone up to 8th, so that's kind of massive. And as a result of that, some countries have been pushed down, like Albania, who were previously 9th, they were now 10th, and Estonia has interestingly also gone below them as well, even though they were previously above Belgium, but now they're below Belgium and Czechia. And yeah, honestly, other than that, the top hasn't really changed that much, except Sweden's winning chance or winning percentage has just gone up even more. Now, I'm gonna go very quickly through the brackets that were already open in the previous episode. First off, we have the top 10. This was also open in the previous episode, and like I mentioned, Czechia has gone up. They have been betted on as placing in the top 10 now. In the previous episode, they were down, well, not that far down. They were only down to 12, but they have now entered the top 10 as a potential top 10 country in Eurovision 2025, and the rest pretty much remains the same, although in just a slightly different order. And the country they knocked out of the top 10 was actually Italy. Moving on to the semifinals, we had the winner brackets previously, and that really, again, hasn't changed much. I don't think anyone else thinks that anyone other than Sweden will win. I mean, come on, 64%. Yeah, like pretty much everyone thinks Sweden's gonna win the first semifinal, and for the second semifinal, yeah, it's pretty much the same scenario. Who's gonna win this semifinal? So now let's take a look at the brackets that were not in the previous video, starting with the top 5. And yeah, it's honestly pretty similar to what we had for the winner, except like Czechia is like marginally higher. Malta is higher as well, which I think is interesting. And Belgium is lower, but honestly, it might just be because some of these, companies, these betting companies might not be offering this bracket. But for the best Balkan, yeah, it's got to be Albania. I would be very surprised if anyone other than Albania is the best country this year. I love Greece's entry, but I don't think they're going to be challenging for the upper rankings as much as Albania will. And yeah, this also kind of, I think, talks about how likely they are to qualify as well. And honestly, of these, I only see these top 2 qualifying, but I'll talk more about that in my qualification prediction video. For best Nordic, yeah, Sweden, no no debate about that. I would be very, very surprised if Kai weren't the best ranked out of all of the Nordic countries. For the best Big 5, yeah, I would say that's appropriate, although I must admit I still don't really get Maman as a song. I am surprised, however, at Germany being so low. Although there might be an element of the UK being overrated, but maybe that's just me. And for best Baltic, yeah, it's gonna be Tommy Cash, like it or not. His song is apparently just very popular with locals. So yeah, if Catharsis get a better result than Tommy Cash, I would like to see it. Or Tautomatas getting a better result than Tommy Cash, I would like to see it. But it is not our year to be talking about such things. Alright, qualification odds. Now, I'm not going to review these closer to the contest, or rather I will, but I'm not going to make a video about them. So here is pretty much our only look at the qualification odds for Eurovision 2025. So, I would say it's close, but I would not put through all of these countries. I'm actually not going to talk about who I think I'm going to put through, because again, I've got a prediction thing, a prediction video that's hopefully coming soon, after this one, of course. But I think it's got maybe, I think these odds have got maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 correctly, and some of the rehearsal footage that we're getting is just proving me right. But yeah, of course, there's an element of personal bias, but yeah, I would say these have got maybe around, yeah, 7 to 8 of them correctly. Not to qualify is a very interesting bracket. I mean, it's just pretty much the whole thing upside down. For semifinal two, looking at this, I would say, yeah, again, pretty close. I would say, again, 8 out of 10 that they probably got correct in my personal prediction anyway. But obviously I could be wrong, but these odds can and often have been wrong. So yeah, that's pretty much it really for Eurovision 2025 odds in terms of qualification and in terms of winner. But yeah, these are the odds as of pretty much what is it, 13 days before the final. Well, 9 days before Eurovision itself starts, but 14 days. Um, yeah, wait, no, 13 days before the final. There we go. 13 days ahead of the final. These are how the odds are looking. And if you're watching this after that time, you can just go to Eurovision World yourself to see what the odds are looking more like in as we get closer and closer to the contest. But the odds are just a representation of what people think will happen. What do the fans themselves actually like? Well, fortunately, we've got a few fan polls and fan juries to sink our teeth into. Starting with OGAE, which is probably the oldest running fan club of Eurovision. There's other ones as well, obviously, as we'll actually get to, but OGA is pretty much the longest running one. In fact, it was so old that it started out being a French speaking thing. In fact, I believe the initialism OGAE is actually in French, but we still say OGAE, or some people say ogae and whatnot. But yeah, this is the fan poll from OGAE, and you can see here the screenshot is from Ukraine, which was the last country to have voted. And in general, I think a lot of it aligns with the odds, at least in the top ranks. With the exception of Spain, obviously. Spain is really loved by people who like girl bops, I suppose. And also some countries are like really underrated, I would say, like Ukraine and Lithuania and Portugal especially, and Iceland. But yeah, you can see here a lot of the top countries I think are pretty similar to the odds top countries. Malta's a bit higher because I would guess the girl bop effect as well. OGAE just loves girl bops. So yeah, you can also see, interestingly, Albania is all the way at 6th, and even in the odds earlier they were at like what, 8th or 9th or something like that, which has never happened in recent Albanian odds history. So I think Albania are really up for a really, really good result in the end. Not only are they going to qualify quite easily, but they're probably going to come at least top 10, I would hope. And that is seeing whether depending on whether the Albanian diaspora comes out and votes for it. But still, even taking that away, I think Albania is still due for a really good result in the end, and I think they really deserve it. It's a very unique song amongst the pack. But yeah, you can see here some countries are underrated, some countries are overrated, but obviously that also comes down to like personal opinion and sometimes what I would like to call the 11th place effect or the 12th place effect, where some countries are rated pretty highly, relatively speaking, but are just not high enough to reach the top 10. And this can happen many, many times, and in the end, they just miss out on a lot of points. But that might be what has happened here. I haven't looked at every single OGAE vote in detail, but yeah, that is the OGAE vote. You can see Sweden, Austria, Netherlands, Finland. All of these are very popular, both in the odds and in OGAE as well. And then we have another pretty big fan club of Eurovision, which is infe. Now, unlike ogae, this vote actually hasn't finished yet. I took this screenshot from when North Macedonia voted, I think a day ago. And you can see, honestly, a lot of it is pretty much the same situation. Austria, Sweden, Albania, Malta, Netherlands up at the top. Although Finland does seem to be a little less popular, but you can see also the points in general are just much lower. There's so far only 12 countries have voted. You can see in the graphic in the top left. So not many countries have even voted yet, so this is going to be probably out of date by the time I post this video. But again, a clear trend is emerging where Austria, Sweden are like the big favorites of some of the fans out there, as well as Albania, Malta, France, Netherlands, etc. And Spain, of course. But I would say that Spain probably is being a bit overrated here. I really doubt they're going to make top 10. And actually, I want to kind of talk about some of these fan votes. Obviously, they don't represent a kind of prediction. They don't predict anything. They're just kind of the personal opinions of the members of the fan clubs around the world. And so don't really treat them as anything too indicative. I would say it's pretty close at this point. You can see up top 97 points for Austria versus 90 points for Sweden. But again, it's not really a prediction. It's just what some of these fans think. And keep in mind as well that fans in different groups are going to inevitably vote differently, especially if you divide them by age, by demographic, by, well, sexuality even. But yeah, I would say there are definitely trends in the votes of infe and ogae each year, and obviously these are not to be taken as predictions because they just aren't accurate in that way at all. But yeah, so far we have 12 countries who have voted in infe, and you can see some clear leaders, which are Austria and Sweden. And finally, for this video, we have what is referred to as the model, which is a thing that has been put out by eurovoix as a kind of thing to predict Eurovision results using the current odds as a reference point. Now, I don't even really know how the model works, and by the way, Lucas, I know you're watching this. I have seen the prediction jury, but honestly, the results are pretty similar to what we've got from ogae and infe, and also there's some kind of problematic people on that jury, so no thanks. Anyways, back to the model, which is a thing that claims to try to predict some Eurovision results using the current odds, which aren't, fully accurate, which is why, for example, Albania isn't in the top 5. I would honestly presume them to be at least near to the top 5, but in this case, you can see here, they're only predicted to come 9th in the final, which I think could be higher based on, both fan votes and also, personal estimations because of like historical bias against countries like Albania in the odds. But regardless, let's take a look at the semifinals first. And you can see, interestingly, San Marino has dropped all the way down to 11th place, meaning that this model is actually differing from the current odds given for the qualifications in the semifinals. So because the odds actually predict San Marino to qualify, while this model actually predicts Iceland to qualify, which I find quite interesting. Another thing that I find interesting is that Estonia is quite low on this semifinal ranking list for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why, because in the actual qualification odds is actually quite high, but I don't really know. Anyways, moving on to the second semifinal, I would say, again, I'm not totally in accordance with these results, but these are mostly based on the odds, and I don't know what kind of like processing that they do to change to have the predictions, but you can see that they are a difference. Like, for example, I think Serbia is currently predicted to be a qualifier, but it's just like bottom three in this model. So yeah, I wouldn't totally say this was accurate, but it is an interesting indication to what people think will happen, as opposed to what might actually happen in the end. Now, for the grand final, they for some reason only made a graphic for the top five, but yeah, honestly, at this point, I don't know about the total points necessarily, but I do see Sweden winning the contest. Um, I don't know necessarily about France coming second, but maybe that's just me. Likewise, I'm not convinced Netherlands is coming fourth, or even coming close to fourth. But again, that might just be my personal bias. I don't know really. But interestingly, they have predicted Switzerland to be coming seventh place in the ranking, which I think is really interesting. I honestly would love to see it because the song I think is really beautiful. It's hopefully gonna do well in the jury, but we don't know that for sure. And I also hope that Czechia will have a good result as well, and maybe better than eighth place if I'm being honest. But again, might just be my personal bias. But that is the model from Eurovoix, and that is a preview of some, but not all, of the fan polls and fan juries that we've got. Obviously, you can vote in your own fan jury if you like. In fact, I've actually got a group chat going, and in my group chat, we're supposed to be voting for a jury, but people forgot about that weeks ago. So maybe I'll try to get them to vote on it later, but we'll just have to see what happens there. But yeah, for now, this is a kind of semi-objective prediction of what's going to happen. But again, this is based on the odds, which are and historically have been biased against certain countries like Albania. So we just have to see what happens in the end. Well, the time has come to ask ourselves the question one last time this season: what's next? Well, we start with the first rehearsals, of course. As of recording this, it is the 4th of May, which means that yesterday we already had the first rehearsals from the first half of the first semi-final. That is a lot of firsts in one sentence. But yeah, we had rehearsals from those countries, from Iceland all the way to Portugal. And today, as of me recording this particular segment, we have already had the rehearsals from Norway, Belgium, Azerbaijan, and San Marino. And the crew are actually currently on a lunch break, but after the lunch break, they will be having the rehearsal from Albania, which is going to be huge. But one thing that they've implemented this year is that each first rehearsal will only get 3 photos that will be released, and they will only be released the day after the actual rehearsal takes place. So we're really not getting much other than a kind of textual description on Reddit, of all places, which, if you're interested, I'm actually going to go through later after this particular segment, so you can skip past that if you don't want spoilers. But yeah, I will be going through what we have so far in terms of rehearsal images and material in general. But yeah, that is the first semi-final. For the second semi-final, we'll have them start the rehearsals tomorrow, which is the 5th, and then the rest of the second semi-final on the 6th. And then, starting on the 7th, we will have the second rehearsals of the non-Big Five countries in the semi-finals, which will start on the 7th and end on the 9th. But on the 8th, we will also start to have the first rehearsals of the Big Five countries, and we'll also have a second rehearsals of the Big Five countries on the 10th. And the day after that, we will have the turquoise carpet and the opening ceremony of Eurovision 2025, and then we'll have the dress rehearsals for the first semi-final on the 12th and the 13th, which is the day itself of the semi-final. And then for the dress rehearsals of the second semi-final, those will take place, of course, from the 14th to the 15th, and the show itself will also take place on the 15th. And then, of course, the dress rehearsals for the grand final will be on the 16th and 17th, and on the 17th we will also have the grand final of Eurovision 2025, and rest assured I will be there streaming my reaction to every single one of them. I'll just be watching from here. I'm not going to be going to Europe this year, unfortunately, but I will be streaming my reaction live to all of the things that happened, or at least to the results of the qualifiers and such. But yeah, other than that, that is pretty much it for the 2025 season of Eurovision. It feels very surreal to finally arrive at this point. A lot of things have happened, both in the Eurovision world and in my personal life. But it's coming to an end, and after that, the cycle begins again for Eurovision 2026, and of course, the inevitable middle act of Junior Eurovision 2025, which I might cover when that comes nearer. But yeah, those are pretty much the last events that we have officially on the calendar for Eurovision 2025. It's been a wild ride, but for now, let's actually take a look at what we have in terms of rehearsal material from the first semifinal. Oh, and if anyone's curious, I'm gonna put the link to where I found the exact schedule for rehearsals in the description. Although keep in mind that can get quite delayed depending on circumstances. In fact, yesterday they had a delay of 40 minutes. So yeah, don't expect it to be exactly accurate. Plus, you're not gonna get photos on the day of the rehearsal anyways. So yeah, I'll still put the schedule in the description though. Alright, so we are here on Reddit, where they have a live blog coming from here for some reason. In previous years, the live blog would not be on Reddit, but rather just on the Eurovision website. But, what can we do? So this is the live blog from Live in the Arena, pretty much. And here are some of the descriptions that we've got. For Iceland, you can see. We have vibe, of course, fundamentally the same as what we saw at Song of Captain, with some little basil polish, and then the LED wall at the back, and it allows hugely impactful graphic backdrops, very cool geometric landscapes and seascapes, and vibe in giant letters. Now there are images, but I'm actually not gonna go through them too much here because I've seen a few more on the ESC Discord Twitter account. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through a kind of the textual descriptions here for now. Pyro update: lots of smoke jets for the Icelandic geyser vibe. Our eyebrows are so far intact, but Poland is incoming. And let's go to Poland now. Yeah, I'm honestly like very impressed actually about what the photos have looked like. But yeah, this is Justina, of course, with the song Gaia, and spinning planets and water and lightning and lava like it's the birth of the universe. Pyro update: low smoke on the main stage from the start and flame jets during each chorus and for the final big notes. And then for Slovenia, we have a different outfit, a black suit with a white t-shirt rather than the gray turtleneck. For Estonia, we have honestly a lot of the same that we saw from Estilal. And you can see here he's wearing the same blue suit, long red tie that we saw at Estilal, and the security guards and things like that. Yeah. After that, we have Ukraine, who are having some interesting outfits, I would say. They have the onstage garden of grass and flowers have gone, and some people are pissed about that, but also apparently, according to some Ukrainians, they already said that they were going to remove that the day after the national final. So yeah, they've gone for a pretty different feel, but you can see the backing singers are still there, which is nice. And yeah, there's some pyro update, low smoke on the main stage from the start, and some fireworks during the guitar middle eights, which is really cool. Then we have Sweden, of course, a Kai with Bada Bada Bastu, and they have found some fir trees, which those are on the graphic. I think those are the fir trees, maybe. But yeah, they've only got 3 dancers instead of the original 4 that they had at Melfest, because obviously Eurovision only allows 6 people on stage. But the sentence that everyone is talking about is that the opening sausage is significantly larger. I mean, that's gotta be like top five Eurovision related sentences of all time. But the opening sausage is significantly larger, but sadly we can't really see it in any of the photos. But yeah, the LED backdrop has an entire forest complete with deer and full neon laser party. There's also pyro, flames in the fire pit, flame jets in the middle eight, then smoke jets to accompany the laser party ending. Then we have Portugal. I don't know why they don't have the images for that, but they have posted images, and I will go through them later on the ESC Discord Twitter. And that's Portugal, of course, and you can see it's the setup is the same as what we saw as Festival against Sound, but they have changed their outfits. They all have long sleeve jackets or shirts. The LED wall adds some floating clouds and animated skyscapes, and all of which adds to the dreamlike quality. And yeah, that is the textual description. But let's go to the actual images that we have now of this. Starting with Ukraine, you can see here they've got some pretty interesting outfits, I would say. What's not pictured in these photos is that the drummer is in neon blue, so that's interesting. And I think the choices of outfit made here are very interesting as well. And I think they said on Discord or something, or Telegram, that they're actually wearing these to represent bi flags, so that they can have representation of pride flags, even though they're banned from actually bringing those flags to the stage. And then we have Sweden here. This is the same image that we saw earlier. That's the aforementioned fir tree and also the kind of branches, I guess, and the sauna setup. It's much the same, not totally the same though, compared to the Melfest setup. And then we have Iceland. They've got a boat at the start, yes. And there's also a kind of Minecraft graphic here. You can see it's kind of Minecraft style with that thing at least, and also vibe in big letters, of course. And we also have the aforementioned steam jets and even a mic drop moment, which I find is really cool. I hope they qualify, seriously. And this is Poland. These are some really, really cool graphics, and dare I say, these are the best images that have come out so far from the rehearsals. And then we have Tommy Cash, who has a plane with the word Tommy Cash written on it on the graphic. And in another shot that was posted by Clement from Slovenia, there was also this thing called Tommy Wood that was on the LED at some point. But yeah, this is not really showing much. You can still see all the security guards or club bouncers that are with him as dancers. So yeah, not much different from his HDLL performance. And here is the performance, or rather the photos from Portugal, from Napa. You can see they've obviously changed their outfits, and the I would say the background is really gorgeous. And here we have Slovenia, pretty much 3 photos of the exact same thing. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of photos that we've got from yesterday. So with that, let's move on to what we've got today. And this is the live blog of rehearsals day 2. Now, again, like I mentioned, we've already had the rehearsals from Norway, Belgium, Azerbaijan, and San Marino, and we haven't had the rest yet. But yeah, let's actually just read what they've got. I've honestly not read too much into this that much. So yeah, let's see what they've got. They've got a much bigger LED backdrop for Norway for post-apocalyptic mountain graphics, and a much bigger stage, and a very polished dance routine that uses both the walkway and the wide front section, which is apparently called the frame stage. And yeah, the lighting is apparently really cool. The moving lighting rig on the roof that creates a stunning moment in the quiet middle 8. And as for Kyle's costume, they can't really tell. To their eyes, it looks exactly the same. And also, he has 3 dancers rather than the 4 that they saw at MGP, and there's some breakdancing at the end. Pyro, we have pyro for this. We had that in MGP as well, so yeah, Jets of Flame for the second half. They should bring marshmallows. Okay, moving on to Belgium, we have something that's quite interesting, which is that the moving platform, which was in Eurosong, actually did not make it to Eurovision for some reason. He is grounded and has three dancers rather than the previous four. His costume is very similar to the thing he wore in the official video, and matching outfits with black accents for dancers, and some precision choreography, including a section where he interacts with his own reflection on the LED floor. Now, some people are concerned about this because the moving platform was actually kind of instrumental to the staging. I think some people would think, but yeah, I don't really know. There are Lego lights apparently. They descend to add some intensity in the final section. But yeah, if you're wondering, again, this is pretty much spoiler central at this point, so if you're still watching and you don't want spoilers while you're watching this, but yeah, the moving platform is no longer in the staging, which I find interesting. Now we move on to Azerbaijan. So, yeah, this is the first performance where we don't have a national selection. This is an internal selection country, of course. Apparently, the lead singer plays the saz, which is a traditional long-necked lute. Try saying that 5 times fast. But yeah, there's a lit halo on the floor mirrored by a smaller one from the roof. There's scores of animated shadow dancers. There's free backing dancers, apparently, which is interesting. But yeah, that is Azerbaijan, and there's flame jets at the end. I don't see why that needs to be there, but maybe that's just me. And then we have San Marino. What's interesting is that for San Marino is that the focus is on Gabri himself in a silver jacket. Now, even the person writing the live blog says it's an unusual staging concept for Eurovision, where the masked vocalists are not the main focus. Now, yeah, it's very interesting. There's pyro, of course. You would expect that from something like this: flame jets, fireworks, smoke jets, and a firework finish. And yeah, silver jacket, a backdrop of pulsing lights, and graffiti on the LEDs. And there's, I'm sorry, Gabri's decks are huge is an interesting sentence for sure. But yeah, anyways, yeah, that is San Marino, and that is really all we've got so far. It says that rehearsals for Albania, Netherlands, Croatia, and Cyprus will kick off at 14:10 CEST. If my calculations are correct, as of recording this, that is in approximately 4 minutes, but it's going to be a while before they write up a kind of summary of Albania anyway. So I'm going to end the preview of the rehearsals here. Alright, editor Rigel here with some breaking news, which is that Kyle Alessandro from Norway has had to undergo emergency removal of his wisdom tooth after his rehearsal, and this will lead to him not being able to talk or sing for the next couple of days. Now, I've never had a wisdom tooth myself, but my sister has had one, and a lot of other people on Eurovision Twitter has had it as well, and a lot of them all think that just a resting period of 2 days, which is kind of what it suggests, is really not enough for Kyle to recover from this at all. But fortunately, we still have a little bit of time until the actual shows themselves, and so we're hoping that, you know, he can recover soon enough so that his performance at the actual semifinal and hopefully grand final aren't affected too much. Sending best wishes to Kyle. Also, from this incident, I accidentally got a hit tweet because earlier today, Kyle and also Marco from Croatia went to meet the new mascot in person. And shortly after that, Kyle had issues with his wisdom tooth, and so I made a random tweet that was like, Marco, be careful with your teeth. And now the tweet, as of recording this, has almost 300 likes, and I don't know what to do with myself. And that is gonna do it for the final episode of Rigel's Random Reports, at least for the 2025 season. This won't be the last video I upload to the channel ahead of the contest, though. I'm hoping to do a quick little pre-rehearsal qualifier prediction video, and I promise I did make those predictions before I saw those spoilers on Reddit and on Twitter and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm hoping to get that done in the next couple of days. Just a short little video where I predict the qualifiers according to my opinion. But then after that, it's just gonna be live streams on the night of the semifinals and the grand final, where I'll be reacting live to the qualifiers as well as the results of the grand final voting. Prior to televote, I might stream the jury vote, but I don't know that for sure. But we'll just have to figure that out when I get there. Again, I have an exam on the day of the grand finals, so that's gonna be fun. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the Rigel's Random Reports. I hope you enjoyed following this series, if you did follow the series at all. But whether you followed the series from the start or this is the first video of mine that you've seen, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my upcoming videos and live streams, and I'll see you next time.